Good morning and welcome back to this week's edition of Making Work Work, my interview series where I'm talking to people whose work is helping other people to be happier at work. And one of the key aspects of being happy at work is that you are in line with your values and you understand what you're all about. Because if you're not aligned with your values, you don't tend to take action because your values are who you are and they drive your behaviors and your actions. So my guest today, I'm super excited. I've got Teresa Brooks here, who's one of my coach heroes. Teresa is a successful entrepreneur and business coach and the creator of Coach Magazine and the Coach Podcast. And she helps successful women entrepreneurs to become comfortable with sales and communication. And a key part of that work is helping them to align their values with their business goals. Teresa, welcome.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to talking to you here as well.
Oh, well, I know our listeners are going to just absolutely love and this has been the focus of my week all around, why are you doing what you're doing and what is the intent behind this? So I can't wait to dive in here. So Teresa.
Great. It's nice to be on this side for a while because normally I'm interviewing all the coaches and doing lives, and it's really nice to be in the hot seat on the other side.
I guess so. Yeah, it must be a bit of a change for you being on the other side of the fence, huh? Yeah,
nice.
So that's great. So Teresa, just kind of talk to me a little bit about your journey. I mean, how did you get to where you are? Because you have 25 years as in sales, media, journalism. You were a super successful sales performer. Your
tongue twisters.
Yeah, sorry.
Try and say that after a few.
Okay.
Super successful sales performer.
Teresa was recognized as one of the top 100 salespeople in the country, and she's been featured in the Business Success magazine as well as BBC Radio. And she knows a thing or two when it comes to sales and branding and values. So Teresa, how does someone like you become a coach? How did that happen?
So I'll cut a very long story short. So when I was younger, I trained as a holistic therapist because I always wanted to help people. And I do have a very holistic approach to my work, which sometimes surprises people when they don't know my background. Oh. And so I had my own holistic therapy business for a while. And what I found is that people would come to me when they were sort of at their last grasp of a chance. So they'd be like, I've tried everything else.
Oh God.
I might as well try this. And that's how holistic therapy used to be viewed.
Really?
Yeah. And it was kind of like a bit alternative and all of that. And so people would come and actually I would get really amazing results with them. Okay. Using the therapies, mainly aromatherapy, reflexology, Reiki, candles, massage, the whole thing. I loved it.
Oh, wow. That sounds great.
And one woman really stands out to me in particular is she was suffering with depression and she had tried everything and she didn't want to go on any medication.
Yeah.
So she came to me in quite a bad state. And I remember like reading all my books and getting all my oils and creating these blends for her and consulting with her. We spent 10 weeks with the aromatherapy and she made such a transformation.
Wow.
Because the oils really do affect and they traverse into the bloodstream. So very, very powerful. They're not just lovely smells. In fact, some of them smell quite awful. So she really, really changed. And I couldn't even really believe it in front of my own eyes because being sort of a reasonably new aromatherapist, I was kind of going by the book, and to see these results was just so rewarding for me. And she got to the end of her 10 weeks and she bought me this lovely plant and she got rid of this terrible relationship that she'd been in, which was also part of it. And she started a crystals course and she had this whole new outlook. And I'll never forget her because it was the feeling of being able to really help someone with what I was doing that is what I loved. And so I did that for a while, and then I trained in counselling as well, and I got through quite a long way of counselling, but I found it a little bit long-winded, and I think coaching for me is so much better. It's much more forward focused as well, although counselling has changed in format since I did it, but still the principles remain. And then there's a lot of stuff in there, but basically I'd always been in a sales job. So when I first started out working at a newspaper, so I was an advertising rep and I sold advertising space in a local newspaper, and I did all my training in college alongside that, so I was still working. So that was how my career kind of sat on the top of my passion, if you like.
Mm.
And, you know, I was pretty good at the job. In fact, I was really good at
Sounded
the job.
like it, yeah.
And I loved the job. And it just really went from there, because let's be honest, I don't think anybody ever, especially women, say, oh, I really want a career in sales. Oh, I just would love that.
It's one of those things, isn't it?
Everybody says that.
No, well, and yet we're having to sell ourselves all the time, aren't we? Every day. Whether you want to think of it as sales, that's really what you're doing, isn't it?
Everything is selling, okay? But you notice how you said we all have to do this all the time, and I think that's the problem, is that you know, with sales, it's got a lot of perceptions to it. But we'll come on to that. But nobody really wakes up and goes, "Oh, my dream job, selling." But the great thing about sales is that when you're in a job like that, and I've been in several sales jobs, is you can make a lot of commission. So there's a lot of money to be made with selling, you know, in its most basic form. That's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
So I've sold property. I've sold very high level property. I've been in recruitment, all kinds of things. But my newspaper career was quite long, and I learned a huge amount there about advertising, about how to advertise. And back in the day, you know, we're cutting out, I don't want to say I'm too old, but we're cutting out newspapers, we're writing strap lines, we're learning. I mean, that's really like back in the start of how it was for me. I didn't have a mobile phone, I had a pager, there was no internet, everything was very different. So my career grew over time. I did a lot of traveling in the middle of it. And then fast forward to when I then took my role up at Yellow Pages, which some people might go, oh God, Yellow Pages, because, you know,
that's taken us back a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, of course, it's just yell.com now, and all the print has gone. But when I was there, the book was still the book.
It was king, yeah.
The book was king. The book was amazing. And not many people know that Yellow Pages started off as a little advert in a shop window.
Really?
Somebody advertising something. And the advert had been in the window for so long that it became yellow and faded like it does with the sun. And then people started to do more
Yellow
and more.
Pages,
That's kind of how it came about, from what I remember anyway. And that really was a time where all my skills from my sales careers previously and everything I'd been good at was amalgamated, because that was very intense. There was a lot of training, hardcore sales training. Back in the days where we didn't have video, internet and live, I was being videoed, doing my sales presentation, and then being ripped to shreds basically about everything I did right, everything I did wrong. That sounds pretty
intense, yeah.
The stress levels. But anyway, you know, after the training, I started to see, oh my goodness, this is why I have had success in it, because I knew I was good at it, but I didn't really know why. So
what was it? What was it you think that was helping you to be successful?
Yeah, it was understanding and being trained in the actual sales process. Okay, because it really is a skill.
Yeah.
So what I realized is that I had kind of naturally joined up a lot of these things, and I did a lot of what we would call relationship selling. So I was good at building rapport. I was good at understanding people. If you think about my previous work and skills in holistic, my interest in people, that really came to the fore when I would be selling, but I wasn't consciously aware of all this. So that all brought that together, and then that was it. So once I had my sort of natural set of skills, and then I had all this training, I was off the blocks. There was no stopping me.
You're off, yeah.
It was very process driven. The sales, we had to go through a certain way. We had to take people through a certain way, which did feel rigid. This day and age, people probably wouldn't do it like that. Some people used to dread us coming because they'd be like, oh, Yellow Pages, they'll never leave till they've got a sale. And we would be sometimes hours with people. And the thing is that obviously there was hard targets in a job like that. So it paid really well. Okay. I got paid very, very well, had a nice, you know, private healthcare insurance, all the bits, car, the lot, excuse me. But so you've got to hit your targets, you see. So you have to hit your targets in a job like that. So sometimes in that career, I wasn't always that happy because it was so driven like that. But what was interesting is that all the people I worked with, and the women particularly in that sales environment, were very, very dynamic. Nobody had any problem talking about money. We would all talk about commission. We were all earning commission, okay, because that's how, and we used to get thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in commission if we hit our targets. And that's what we were working towards. So that's all we talked about was money, sales, targets, commission, process, making it better.
Mm.
So it's pretty intense, rewarding, but corporate work like that, it does take your blood pretty much.
It does, yeah. Your whole life is that business, isn't it?
Yeah. And when I was put into the selected to go, they used to call it the Yale 100 Club, and they would do one every year. So it was like the 100 top performers across the whole UK, all the Yellow Pages performers, and go to a nice big event. We went to London. It was super. But God, did you earn it? Do you know what I mean? If you got there, and it was quite exhausting. So when I had my daughter, I went back to work. I went back there as well. So I had a year off. Then I went back into that environment. And of course, there's no leeway. It's like, oh, great, you can have flexi time, but it wasn't really. You still got to give your pound of flesh to get the money that you want. Okay, so it's the fair exchange. But it started not to work with me being a new mum, being a single mum as well. And I wasn't seeing my daughter, and I started to get very, very unhappy. And this is where the values come in, Chris.
I was going to say, because it sounds as though potentially that was a point at which maybe your values and your priorities changed, and they had a bit of a shift. And I think that obviously happens a lot to us, especially when we have children. That's a huge shift, isn't it?
It's a huge shift. And the things that were important to me before, the things that where I was happy to give my time. I mean, growth is one of my values. So I'm always happy to be growing, to be changing, and to be earning, and to have my bank balance growing. But pretty much some of the other values that I have were being very depleted.
And what were they?
So, one of my other values is connection. And I suppose I felt very disconnected between what I was being at home in terms of being a mum and wanting to take care of my daughter and love her and be with her, and then kind of being this powerhouse at work and still being expected to do exactly the same, even though I was exhausted a lot of the time. And I just felt disconnected from, I wasn't as passionate about what I was doing. So as a result of that, like anything.
Oh, we seem to have hung there for just a second. Bear with us. Hopefully the Zoom will catch up in just a moment. Oh, are you still there, Teresa? Looks like Zoom is having some issues, folks. Just bear with us.
Any of us, if we're not.
Oh, sorry, Teresa. The sound just cut out and cut in again. Sorry, everyone who's listening.
I'm so used to it. It's always,
we have the technology. But anyway, sorry, could you just repeat what you just said, please?
I can try. What was I saying? So I just was losing my passion. Yeah. And my values had changed. My value set had shifted. And what was important to me before wasn't as important now with the work. And of course, like I was just saying, like anything, if we lose that passion and we're not as anchored as we need to be, our results and our performance will start to slide a little bit. And that's what was happening. And when I talk about sliding, I was going from maybe in the top 3 or 4, maybe down to number 5 or 6. But that was like a really big thing. And so my boss would be on the phone, oh, are you okay? And you know what that phone call's about. And I was thinking,
it's awful.
And they just want you up there all the time. So,
and it's hard to be up and on top of things like that when you're not congruent with yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. So because my mind also was elsewhere, and I wanted to be a mum, and I wanted to be with my daughter, but I was out of the house 5:36, and I wasn't back until 6. I was driving across the country still, and I thought, this is really not working for anyone. So I made a massive decision and decided to leave. And of course, they told me that, my life would never be any good without working there.
You've thrown it all away. That's it.
Yeah. How could you possibly leave this incredible job? And, it was really quite brutal there in many ways. 1 in, 1 out. If you didn't work, most people didn't survive beyond a year, or if they did, they went 5 years. And then it's would be a bit of a burnout. And there's some long haulers that are still there, and I'm like, hats off to you, really.
That's why it's so important for businesses to have their values and their a clear value and sense of vision and mission, and have it aligned with their people, because if they're not on board, this is it. And your values are in conflict with your employer, then your people aren't going to produce as much, and they're not going to stay.
And this is it. You're talking about culture there as well. So, values and culture are very, very closely aligned, and your culture comes out of your values base.
Absolutely,
and,
yes.
I couldn't tell you clearly that I remember now what the values of Yale were. They did have them, but at the end of the day, it was all about the money.
It's all about the money. Yeah.
Businesses will have values, but whether those transpire into a really good culture of working and through the people is another question.
Absolutely.
Because people don't always take the subject of values as seriously. They go, oh, like, well, this is our mission statement, these are our values, and that's that. Other companies are phenomenally good at it. Like, say, for instance, Virgin, I always think, is a great example of a very values aligned company, and what they stand for, what it's all about.
Yep.
And if anything happened where it was a bit strange or they started doing different things, it would be really out of line.
Mm-hmm.
They're all about their customer. So very, very clear culture in that business. And even though we're entrepreneurs and there's like maybe just the one of us, we sometimes forget that it's just as important. One is just as important as 1,000. So, having your own values, doing that own values work to understand, because I didn't really come into contact with understanding my own values until I did my coach training.
So how did that all come about? So you left it, you made this huge decision.
Yep.
You've left this successful career. Yeah, at least in their eyes.
Well, it was, yeah.
And I mean, from other people's point of view, but it wasn't the right thing. So you made the shift, and you started training to become a coach. So tell me, how did you discover coaching?
Okay, so I think coaching has always been in my blood, but I didn't kind of know the word. So with everything that I wanted to do, I wanted to help, wanted to counsel, wanted to guide, wanted to teach, help other people to get forward. That's always been my passion. And I think it all kind of comes together in that word coaching. So after I left the Yellow Pages, I took a very, very small job, like really small job. A filler job, which freaked me out completely, because taking that massive leap. But I had to take a step. Like sometimes, I talk to people about stepping stones. Sometimes you have to take a step. And you're not always going to have that perfectly balanced stepping stone to go on. Okay, that's just all the right width, and your feet aren't going to get wet, and you're going to get across. Sometimes there's a little itty bitty stone, and you think, "Ooh, I don't know," but you can see the other stuff ahead. And I went and I stood and I took a step on a bit of a small stone, and I thought, I'm going to have to make moves in order to get anywhere. So I was always coaching myself, but I wasn't aware of it. But I'd always go with my gut feeling, my instincts, and what felt right for me. Although at this stage, I still wasn't acutely aware of values as a piece. So that didn't work out, basically. It was very different to what I'd done. I didn't perform very well in the role because it was so different to what I'd done. I just kind of couldn't do it, even though it was really easy. It sounds really silly. So the guy came round and sacked me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I was like working from home and I was selling on this small magazine, and I didn't really have the passion, the will, but it was just what I had, and I wasn't sure where the next stepping stone was. But I was out of that. That was the main thing. Yeah. And I'd made a financial plan, so I knew what I was doing. And he came around and he's like, we don't really need anybody on this, to be honest. And he was just doing me a favour at the end of the day to help me as well. And it was pretty obvious it sort of ran itself. And I was like, oh, so I've gone from having this massive job and getting paid loads of money to nothing. I haven't got a job.
Ooh, and that can be and a lot of people are probably facing that very situation right now because of COVID, aren't they? Because of being furloughed or being laid off, and we're suddenly like, I had an interview last week with a career coach. A lot of people are like, what do I do now? And the most important piece of that is to firstly, although your instinct might be to kind of panic and take like the first thing that comes along, actually, it's so important that you spend time to just really figure out what you're all about and what you really want and what's important to you, isn't it?
You're so right, Chris, because actually, the panic factor can set in very easily at any stage of life. We think, oh, I just need to do this or do that. I have to do this. Okay, that obligation comes in. And especially if people are going through a tough time right now with things like that happening, it's out of their control. I mean, this was something I was steering, but that bit was out of my control. And I was like, I had to respond to it. But to regroup when something happens in your life that really challenges you or sideswipes you is the most important thing you can do, even if it's just for a few days. Because I think, I imagine people at the moment might feel, oh my God, first thing you do is start Googling, start looking for jobs. Yeah, what can I do? Panicking, worrying about the money. And in a few days, if you think about it, nothing's really going to happen.
No.
In a few few days. So I'd say to people, always just be kind to yourself. Give yourself a little bit of time to regroup and say, and see how you feel really about what's happened.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have also found that they've had a renewed vigor, perhaps, if you like, through this period, and that they've realized what's important to them. And they also may not speak about it as values,
but they've reconnected with something, haven't they? And it really like just crystallizes everything, doesn't it? When things are that stark, it brings it all into focus.
Actually, maybe I don't really like my job.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't been at my job because I've been at home, in lockdown, and it's been great.
More time with my family.
I've spoken to a few people like that have thought, do you know what? I don't know if I want to go back to this. I don't know if I want it. So it's been a beautiful opportunity, although it's been intensely challenging, to also change things.
Yeah.
But change is not easy. We don't like to change things because it makes us feel a different way.
You got to get comfortable with the uncertainty, don't you? Yeah.
So, your values baseline is always such a great check. It's a great check-in point. So now I'm more acutely aware. So getting to the point where I wanted to train as a coach is like after that happened, I then set up my own magazine, because he said to me, one of these golden moments in life, he said to me, I don't even know why you're working for someone else anyway. You are totally capable of running your own business, your own magazine. Why don't you do that? And although it was really simple to him, I sat there and I thought, well, I can't do that. I don't know about that. Other people do that, right? And because I was a job mindset person. I'd had a job since 23. And then I thought to myself, the other part of me came in and thought, actually, you're right. And so I did. So I set up my own magazine. And I sold it all. I wrote it all. I literally built it from scratch. I went out seeing people. It was all about groups and communities and charities. I went out, I made real life connections, and I put together a monthly magazine, and I ran that for 4 years. And I won 2 awards whilst running that magazine as well, which I was not expecting.
But so clearly it was the right step to take, wasn't it?
It was a great year for me. So I won Bedfordshire Businesswoman of the Year and an FSB Innovation Award, because I turned the whole magazine into virtual reality magazine.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that was pretty cool. And then after that, I united with another magazine, went into another partnership, did that for 2 years. And then I was just getting to the point where I thought, I'm so bored. Basically, I was just bored, and there was my value of growth was being depleted, because there was no growth in the partnership and what we were doing. It was fine, but it was just popping along. And actually, it started to get a little bit tight to have 2 directors in this business. Financially, there wasn't really much money in there for me, and it was looking like it was going to get less. Another print product, and we didn't have a sort of lead on website or anything. So the growth was kind of shrinking, and that was making me feel unhappy.
And where was the coaching in all this? Were you training at the same time? Was it kind of just ticking along in the background, or what was going on with that?
Yeah, so I started to think about sort of leaving. We'd have conversations about my other partner just taking the magazine and me exiting and all of that. And I was starting to look around for other things, and I wanted to do some training, and I wanted to set up my own consultancy. That was the idea I had.
Right.
So whilst I was researching that, of course, if you're going to be researching consultancy online, you're going to bump into coaching.
And I know that's one of the things in your magazine is it's helping people understand the difference between what is coaching, what is consulting, what is mentoring, which we touch on later, but that there are very finer distinctions, aren't they?
Very, they are fine, but they are distinctions. And I read it and I looked and I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. That is it. It just described, it was perfect. And then I found the most incredible trainer, a coach trainer, an NLP trainer, and that training just literally I was doing through the summer, so I still had my business, and it just changed my life. Everything just kind of, when all the bits start falling into place.
Yes.
But the values part, Chris, that's what was life changing, because taking as well through this training, what was important to me, like raising the awareness about what was important to me, and actually getting it out on paper in words and understanding the feelings and the meanings that are attached to that. And I always say to my clients, listen, we're not talking about a bunch of words on a page.
No.
A word that I use, so I could say growth, you could say growth, and we know what that means. 2 different things. Yeah, we know what it means generally. It means not shrinking, okay?
Yeah.
But the thing is that it might mean something very different in my deep structural experience as to why growth has become important to me. A lot of things that you couldn't possibly understand and that I don't have the capacity or language to explain. So a value set is based up of 5 core values we talk about, but we have lots of values, but 5 core ones. And these are like our main gears, if you like, our main levers. And once I started realizing what my values were and I could voice them, I could feel them, I could write them down, and then I could explore them, it was mind-blowing, because at the time I was in a situation, in a relationship, really wasn't working. And I knew that, like you do, you know that in your gut, but you just carry on anyway. But once I realized clearly what was going on, I realized my value set was so different to his value set. It was so opposing that literally I remember having a glass of wine and like bawling my eyes out, thinking, this is why. I get it. It's just not, you know, we're missing. And I realized how important it was for me to have that, you know, to be congruent. And as a result, you know, like the lady that I treated with depression all those years ago, I finally was able to end and exit that relationship with no looking back, which I hadn't been able to really quite do before. And so it was really quite an emotional journey for me, but the skills I learned there, the passion that I developed, and I realized it had, my trainer, like Steve Payne, he said to me, you know, you were born to coach. And I remember at the time I was quite early on, just setting up the business, and I thought, that's a bit much. I don't know whether that's quite, it sounded, you know, quite a lot. But actually, when I reflected on that, I thought, you know what, I am, because if you took it away from me now, I wouldn't really know what to do. And I would definitely go to something that was a side partner, like, you know, helping or training. I would do any of the surrounding pieces. So it's all one to me. But it was the values that got me there. And with the women that I work with now, it's the first piece of work I do, and it often takes like 1 or 2 sessions, and it's pretty deep. They're not really expecting what comes out of it, because
so can I just ask you, because I'm a coach myself, and I've done training values, and just about to qualify as an NLP practitioner for myself, so I'm quite excited about NLP as well. So values, because there's different ways to kind of look at values in terms of the exercises that we take people through, and it can be quite deep. But it's what I've seen so often with values exercises, where they give you like almost like a laundry list of values, and you're supposed to like pick your top 10 and rank them. And it's like, the problem is you look at, there's so many words and you go, oh God, they're all great, you know, and you like all of them. And it's like, how do you approach people finding their values then?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think it depends how you've been trained as well. And so you have to give people a start point. Okay, so it does seem a little bit brutal when you've got a whole load of words on a page, but a lot of people haven't put their feelings and what's important to them in life into words before like that. So you do need to start at that baseline.
So somewhere, yeah.
And so I always say I have a values exercise that I've designed myself, and it's pretty much like that. But I ask them to be incredibly instinctive about it. Okay, and only choose 10. No order, no nothing. Just what you're drawn to, and don't overthink it. Okay, so I'm looking for that really instinctive level, first of all. And then when we work through them, I've been trained on a values elicitation process. Okay,
yes, I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I do that exercise.
Which I find sometimes a little confusing to get through. So I tend to do it another way, and I just explore and unpack each value in a certain way with that person around their experiences and where that value has been developed from. And this is where you sometimes get some of that rooting come up, you know, and
the beliefs, and
you unpack the beliefs. You find out, you know, actually whether it is one of their values or whether it's an inherent value.
Right.
So for instance, if your parents always says you must tell the truth, always tell the truth, you've got to be honest, really important. On, you know, if that's the message that you've heard, you might see honesty on a list and go, oh, honesty, it's really important to be honest. But when I might ask you, where have you been really honest in your life, and where have you been dishonest in your life, where has someone else been dishonest to you, and what effect has that had? If you can't find those examples, then it's not one of your core values.
Now that's so interesting. That's a much deeper approach, isn't it?
It is. And so people sit there and they go, well, and I think, no, we're already, it's not there, because what's really important is you know what you know, okay, and coaching will elicit it out of you, but you do know. But if it's not there, you can't try and find it. But eventually what they will say is that, well, I don't know, it's really important. My dad always said, you know, you've got to be really honest, and we were always very open in our house. So then I might say, well, is that your value or is that your dad's value? And then they start thinking, you know, because it's not like honesty wouldn't be important to people.
Oh, sure. But it's to what.
But it could be further down. And it's like, what happens in your life and how do you feel if you perceive someone to be dishonest about your perception of that? Okay, there is no truth. Your perception of that, if someone's been dishonest, what does it do to you? How do you feel inside? How do you react? What happens?
Yeah. What would you fight for?
Yeah, you're looking for a strong emotion and a strong reaction around things like that for it to be a really core value, so that if someone nudges it, you know, okay. And also, you know why, because normally a value, let's say normally, it can appear from things that have happened in the past that have been really not good. So if someone's lied to you, if a partner's lied to you in the past, for instance, or a business partner or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be, and it really hurt you, you may develop a value of honesty and truth from that, because you never want that to happen again. So it's really important to understand why it's important, but is it just the fact you don't trust people, or you want people to be honest? So I go really deep into it, digging around.
Yeah. And I mean, how does it relate then to the sales piece? Because obviously there's so many values and beliefs that come up around sales. And I know that's one of the things that you specialize in with the clients that you work with, is kind of getting over this idea of selling as being, you know, something that it isn't, you know, something sleazy and awful. And actually it's about problem solving and serving and helping your clients.
It is, but for some reason women don't believe that, and even some guys I've met have shied away from sales. And I think, you know, I've thought about this very carefully, and I think we're stuck in the 80s, okay, with the word. I think that's the problem. We're too retro on it, and we need a new word, which I'm trying to think of. Then I'll make a fortune. But you know, the thing is with the sales is that as soon as you say sales, and notice that we always say salesman.
Ooh. Yes, you're right. That's.
We don't say saleswoman, we say salesman. And I'm sorry, wonderful men that are watching.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you think about a car salesman, because people love that example as well, you got a suit, you got a forecourt, you got an expensive bit of kit, you come onto there, and then you've got pressure. Okay, where they're just chucking a whole load of features at you. It's got this, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this. And then they're straight down the line onto the sales, the cost, and all of that. You know, throw in some really unattractive charm offensive that might work or not work. And you've got this whole mix of a perception of a salesman that is pushy, only wants his commission, and that very sort of commission-led sales feeling. You only want to sell me this car so you can get your money. Okay. And that is not client focused, that's not customer focused. And although we've come a very long way from that still kind of goes on. But with this learning a sophisticated sales process and putting the serving and the solving, shifting the reframe to your client away from you. A lot of women think about, oh my God, I've got to sell something.
Or I've got to convince them to work with me or something like that.
Yeah, I've got to make them buy something from me now. And they might have been fine with the first process of the rapport building relationship.
That's all. Yeah. But it's when you get to the end.
Like, and normally I've found that it's to do with the money. Okay, it's to do with, again, asking, although you're not asking, people want to buy, right? You're not asking them for money. Oh, hey, Chris, can I have a couple of grand?
Well, they wouldn't have a conversation with you if there wasn't some interest in what you're selling, is there?
Yeah, but you see, all those limiting beliefs and not being very aligned with who you are, what you're offering, and the value of it will all start cutting in, as it's getting nearer to that. And, you know, they find it very difficult to talk about money, to negotiate, or they'll think they've got to get all like, you know, full on. And you don't need to do that at all. So what I do a lot with the sales training that I do and the coaching that I do is I reframe how they feel about it. It's a values piece as well, because you should, if you've done the right work and marketing work, you should be speaking to quite an aligned client already. So they're there. So you know, and then when you change it to be all about them, okay, and realize that people want to buy solutions. They want to
They want
have
to
the
solve
answers to their
problems.
problems.
Yes.
And it's not for you to judge what they will or won't spend just because basing on what you will or won't spend. So you get a lot of that projection. My God, I wouldn't spend that. I'd probably spend about this. So maybe I'll charge that, or maybe that's too much. And you need to create those boundaries so you realize that you're actually serving the client, and know that that's congruent with your pricing, your brand, what you can do, what you can't do. You know, you can't just stick a high ticket on something just because you want to, or you've seen other people do it.
Yeah.
You've got to know that you can deliver those results, because people will always find money for what they want. We're all buyers.
Yeah,
I buy stuff. I buy stuff. I spend hundreds, thousands. I buy things I don't want. I buy things I do want. You know, I'll spend money on a coach or a mentor or a course or a program because I want it. So if it's the right match,
it's gonna work.
Happy.
Yeah,
it's going to work.
It's
matching.
So, and talk to me a
It's
little bit about
matchmaking. Perhaps I'll call it that.
Absolutely.
Business matchmaking.
Absolutely. It's not selling really, it's service. My father was a salesman. I actually always had a very good impression of sales because I saw the sort of relationships that he built with people. So I'm probably one of those rare people that actually thought sales was a good thing. Yeah, but it doesn't make it any easier to put yourself out there, which leads me on to the next point, which is talk to me about branding and visibility. And the brand that you built up through Coach Magazine, and how did that all come about, and how do you help women to get over that, you know, it's that visibility thing, isn't it, of what am I standing for, and then getting it out there once you know what that is.
Yeah, and of course there's so much, you know, everything is fear-based really in all of us. You know, we're all fear-based because it's a survival game really. So we've got this whole sophisticated human element and all of that and everything we do, but we're all surviving. And if our brains perceive that there's something of a threat and it doesn't understand being visible, having a brand, going live, it doesn't understand any of that. It's just like, I don't know if this is safe, let's not do it. And that's how we develop our very tight comfort zones. But again, when you've got a really strong value set and you know why, and you've explored all of that in yourself, that will help you to make decisions easily. It will give you clarity. It will give you reflection, opportunity to be curious and think, this person said that, or I'm in this situation, where does that sit with me? And you've got a measure, whereas otherwise you're just like, oh, that's a good idea, or yeah, okay, you think that's better, and all of that, and that's where you can go off track. So this value set is really important. And once I'd had mine established, I knew who I wanted to work with. Pretty much I wanted to, although my ideal client was more you know, basic in those days, but I definitely wanted to work with women, and I wanted to help women. It was as simple as that. I wanted to help them because I knew that sales and marketing, branding, visibility, and all the things that I could do in the past, there's definitely the sales and advertising. I know that they're skills. You don't just have them, or you can't coach them out of yourself. You need to learn them. Yeah. And so I'm thinking if they can learn them and they can put all these pieces together, they can really reach their potential. And I still believe that. That's why I do what I do. But I was also, when I came into the coaching space, anybody that knows me will know that I'm very, very passionate about professional standards. And let me just put a caveat there. This doesn't mean that I am the most qualified and the most professional and the most of everything. I am not, because there are many, many coaches that are way further forward than me. But I am going through my process. I've done my accredited training. You know, I believe in standards, and I believe that there should be training for all coaches, and that all coaches should have, you know, a recognized body, AC, ICF, EMCC accreditation to start their coaching career. That's my belief. That's my mission. That's what I stand for. So that's why I created Coach Magazine.
And we were talking earlier about, you know, why this is so important is because, you know, when you get into this really deep work, I mean, we're talking on, you know, there's a lot going on here, and it's not just, you don't just pick up an exercise and run through this with a client. There's some thought that goes behind this. And you were saying to me earlier, you know, it's so easy for someone who's not had this sort of training to just kind of get lost in the weeds, and, you know, it all kind of falls apart.
True, because, you know, you might sort of do it as a process and then go, right, okay, well, those are your core values. That's brilliant. Let's move on. But you don't really know if they are, because what happens is when my clients get stuck or they get unhappy or they dip or whatever's going on, and certainly when they're positive and high up as well, I say, what values are being depleted in you? what values are being met. And when we go back to the values pots, as I call them, when we do those check-ins, if someone's having a bit of a downturn or something's we go and they're all depleted, things are happening that are taking away from that. And if you can't always fill them up in one certain space, you must find other resources to be able to fill up those value pots, okay? So that your values are being met internally. So say, just for an example, with growth, if a part of my business or a part of my life or something wasn't really growing in the way I wanted, I was feeling a bit frustrated, I must go and look at another area that I can grow, that I can explore, and I can do something about there. So like, go where you can affect it and find that feed for that growth there. And then obviously other areas shift and change, but don't keep looking at the same space expecting different results. You've got to look outwards and let your values navigate for you. Yeah.
I mean, and with coaching, what do you think's one of the bigger myths that are out there about coaching?
Biggest myth, to know that it's magic. that it's like,
because I think there is a tendency, isn't there? People say, oh, you get a coach and they're going to overcome your limiting beliefs, and actually
bang, everything's great.
Exactly. But there's more to it, isn't it? The client is as much a part of that process as the coach, aren't they?
We don't have magic wands. The closest I come to magic wand is my pen. And really the thing is that I think sometimes people come and they think, oh, if I'm going to invest all this money or any money, I'm going to, and again, that sales transaction, I'm going to get this. Yeah. And I think with coaching, what some people that hadn't experienced it before don't realize quite how much hard work it is on the client side. Okay, so a coach isn't going to come to you and just wave some magic sprinkle dust and everything's suddenly amazing in your business. They are going to really draw out from you what is going on, first of all, and then help you to navigate your way forward, because a lot of people, believe it or not, are on the wrong track. I think certainly when they come to you, they're on the just sort of trying, and they've done the most that they can with what they've got, and then they're like, oh, I don't really know what to do. And some people are really off track. And I've had clients where they've started off wanting to do one thing, and actually through this whole process, they've really refined their vision, and they're on another steer and much happier on that path. So there's a lot that can come out. But I think, one of the biggest myths is that, I'll pay my money and I'll get my results. And all the results come from how much the client puts in. So I can only be where you are. So I'll meet my clients where they are and find out where they want to go and move them there. But if they're refusing to budge or not doing the work or not, really doing what they're doing, I'm not going to do more of that. We're going to go back to values, and we're going to do some personal work, because there's blocks and beliefs there. So you can't just lump more strategy onto it. So I think that's probably one of the myths, that it might be a magic solution.
No. But tell me about the magazine then. So the professional standards. So, and I know that your mission with Coach is to educate, get this right, to educate,
look it
inspire, educate, empower, and inspire, I believe. But show us because the magazine's just recently come out. You can get it online or in print, and it's gorgeous.
So this is the first one. I'm waiting for the latest July edition to arrive to me in print. But when I came into the space and I saw a lot of untrained coaches going on, a lot of different things. I mean, bear in mind, I come from a very professional background where it's all in order, it's all processed. And I try and break out of that as well as I go forward in my entrepreneurial journey, because you get a bit molded, But I was thinking, oh my goodness, I thought everyone, it's a bit naive of me, everyone would be trained and would have done a training course to be a coach. I just assumed that, because that's how I am, professionalism, and that's, I wouldn't dream of doing something. And it
can be kind of frustrating, when you have taken the time to spend the thousands of pounds or the hundreds of hours to develop the mastery in coaching, to then go out there and you see a load of people that are calling themselves coach, and of course they have a lot of different backgrounds that lead into that, but the word coach seems to be like almost a catch-all term, doesn't it, for someone?
Well, it is. That's the thing. It's a very generic term. It comes over from America, where sports coaching, and they would show you how to do something, and then you would do it, and then you would get better, and they would support you. So that's the thing with the term, is that it is a catch-all. And I just want to make it clear as well, as I don't judge anybody for what they're doing, for what they're not doing. Absolutely not. And I think everyone has great value to give. But my personal feeling was I was a little bit oh,
Come on,
what's
yeah.
going on?
And it's an unregulated industry, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, so they're not doing anything wrong. Nobody needs to have a qualification. Let's just get that clear. Nobody needs to have anything. So there's no right or wrong here at all. Of course, one of the NLP presuppositions, there's no right or wrong. And, you know, you don't have to have that. But I believe it's important. And I wanted to then bring something to show my skills and build my authority, because I'm listening to all these webinars like everyone does when they're saying build an authority, build a tribe, do this, do that, you know, and I'm thinking, how can I do this as a coach? Because I saw this massive sea of coaches and I thought, you know, how am I going to put myself out there? Yeah. And so I built that. Coach was born out of my passion for professional coaching and feeling quite strongly about that in an unregulated industry. And also I've always, you know, one of my values is collaboration. So I really enjoy that collaborative work and doing it with other people. And of course I was a publisher. I mean, it wasn't just the other magazines. I've done lots of special edition magazines and things like that. So I had these skills that I'd parked up and gone, I don't need those anymore.
It's like, actually, wait, maybe I'll just get those out now. And
I'm a coach now. I don't need those. And I thought, you know what? You're wasting all of those. You need to bring them in.
Absolutely.
So cut a long story short, I worked as hard as I did when I launched my first magazine with my clients as well. So now I kind of have two businesses and I launched the magazine, and the people that I've had.
I was going to say, where do you get the guests from?
I find them.
Because this is like a best kept secret. Because I've read the magazine, every edition since it's come out.
You're in the magazine.
I'm in the magazine in the back. I've got my own advert. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yes,
See, I'm in print. But I mean, she's literally, and tell us about the global reach of this magazine, because you're literally reaching people all over the world, aren't you? And you're finding coaches that are doing the most extraordinary work, and you're like, you read this magazine, you go, my God, I want to be coached by every single one of them.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is the thing, I made it free to access online because I mean, I know the model of how to work that and what I've done before, and I know people enjoy that, and I didn't want any barriers to the magazine being available, accessible. Certainly not for, you know, the first few editions where, you know, it wasn't really about selling or making it was really part of my business, and it had those true values at heart of connection, growth, collaboration and trust and professionalism. And, you know, because of the online aspect, which is fully, you know, designed that way, it was easy to help it to travel, and that collaborative vibe that it has, where coaches are part of it and they're proud of it, so they share it, and it just goes at Canada, Australia, New Zealand, America, Europe, France, Spain, Prague, all over, Kuwait, Quebec, Canada, all kinds of places. And I'm like, wow, you know, I was getting orders for print from South Africa as well. It's got quite a lot of following South Africa, which is amazing. And yeah, it was designed that way, but also it was very organic. And I think when something is congruent and when something is true and when people like it and they can feel that it's the right, then it just flows so much better. And that's another reason why you need your values aligned in your business, because that clunky stop start, it's not quite working, things are just not really in line. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, I'm always working on my business, my values, what I've got to do, you know, and I hit blocks like everybody, but the magazine is just, you know, everyone's really keen to be involved. It's all features by selection, so nobody can pay to be in it, and everyone in there is trained professional coach, or if for instance they're not and they have a great zone of expertise, which of course is the case, then they will be clearly described as a mentor, as a consultant, as a speaker, what they are, even though they're under the banner of Coach Magazine. So that's where the nuances come in, and I have therapists in there as well who are often trained in coaching too. So I'm super proud of that.
Yes, and you should be. It's an amazing publication. And now you've even taken it a step further, because she's launched the Coach podcast.
Yeah, the podcast, which launched during the lockdown. I thought, I might as well get on with it. Going to have all this time, and it'd been in the build for a while, so I was kind of nearly ready. And so that again is just a wonderful platform where we can hear from the coaches. I can interview them, really dig into what they do, and I get so much great feedback about the podcast. People are like, I mean, one lady was saying that she was really nervous about going shopping because, you know, she was concerned about all the COVID, and she was just quite anxious about it. And she put on one of the podcasts, and she got so involved with it around the shop that it took away all her anxiety. She didn't worry about it at all. And she said, thank you so much for that, because I had you and Joy Deep, who was one of my guests on there. He's an NHS consultant. So that was a really interesting episode. And she was listening to us. We were following her around Sainsbury's. And it just amuses me to think that, you know, that is in people's lives like that and helping them.
Wow.
You know, and they're listening. And I love that, because again, that's the serving part, you know, that's the giving part of me, where I just want to do that. And it makes me happy to hear it.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Gosh, and it's like, and where do you go with, I mean, it's like, well, she's got the magazine, she's got the podcast, she's got a successful business. Where do you go from there with something like that?
Well, the brand new coach website is being built at the moment. So obviously I'm looking to translate a lot more online and building partners with the magazine. And there's lots of things coming up that will be more of building that. And on my side of coaching, I'm having a rebrand now, and I'm going to focus much more on the sales coaching, but also keep that personal, that values work, and growing that business. Because, you know, I come from a background where if you put someone in front of me, I would speak to them and I would take them through the sales journey and sell to them. And it wouldn't feel like that. You could ask any of my clients, like, it never feels like that. And I want to teach other people that. Marketing can do a lot of your selling these days.
If you do it right, it can pretty much do your selling for you. Yeah.
But, you know, if that all went down overnight, you really need these skills, the communication, and the best thing ever is getting someone on a discovery call or in front of you.
Absolutely.
And if someone's got fantastic marketing funnels and they're doing all that, and then they have a one-to-one about coaching, for instance, on a high level, and it's not congruent with that, or it's not a very good call for, you know, for any reason, that's a big disappointment. So these communication skills, which is what they are really important. And you add the NLP into sales as well, and you are looking at a fantastic recipe for that.
Absolutely. So you're really just setting people up for success, aren't you?
I would really like to think so. Yes, that's my strap line, coaching for success. So, I've got proof of that in my clients. They've been so successful, and they can't believe they've actually managed to, you know, authentically sell something. It didn't feel like that.
Like a sale. Yeah.
So amazing. It's great.
Oh, great. I mean, Teresa, would you, are there any sort of like top tips or top takeaways that you give people in terms of just thinking about where do they start with this whole values thing, or even their brand? Or
well, which would you like me to address? Values?
Yeah, start with personal values, because I think that's something that's really relevant to anyone that's looking to probably make a change at this time, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you know, really, I would just suggest spending a little bit of time sitting down and getting a pen and paper, or even before you do that, just sitting down and asking yourself, what is important to me in my life? Okay. And what's been important to me in the past and why? And what's important to me now and why? Because it's all very well to say, oh, it's important for me to have, a lot of people say security or stability.
Oh, yeah.
So why is it important for you to have stability? Like, what do you think stability is?
Yeah.
Because that often then leads to money. So then I might ask them, well, if you didn't have any money, would that make you unstable? And then they start thinking. So, you know, ask yourself the question, what's important to me? What does that mean to me? You know, why is it important? What happens if I don't have it? What happens if I do have it? Where have I felt instability in my life? What did that look like, and how did that make me feel? Because sometimes, you know, the values protect you as well. They're like, I never want to go there again. But there's some other things. So it's really just getting that first bulk of stuff out, and maybe writing down around 10 or so words that are important to you. But when you start going through and you think, well, actually that one is kind of that one as well, and that one sort of goes into that one. And that's the other thing I do, is sometimes we funnel the values into one. So when I say to you, you've been through that process with me, and I say to you, your value of stability, we got a ton of deep structural stuff in there of experience that you understand. When I say the word stability, you've got this whole glorious picture and vibe and feeling of what that means to you. So you can check in on that anytime. That's why they're not just words, because sometimes early days, I'll say to a client, and you know, what are your values? I'll just chuck it in the middle of a session, and they go, try and look at their notes, like look it up and I said, no, don't worry about looking it up. It's not a test, but it just shows you that we need to work on your values set, and you checking in every day. Where am I feeling my values today? What has met my values today? So that's what I'd suggest doing. Just toying with them. This book is amazing. This is a book.
Oh yes, I was going to say, what any books or resources you'd recommend then?
Yeah, this is co-written by my coach and trainer Steve Payne and Alan Williams, and this was the book that I worked through on my coach training. You can see all my notes and scribbles.
Oh wow, yeah.
You have to write in a textbook as far as I'm concerned, and really just sort of, this was like a handbook to me. So this is easy to get online. It's got lots of other stuff in as well about coaching, NLP, goals, beliefs, values. So it's a great book.
Sorry, so the title is 31 Practices, or?
My 31 Practices.
My 31 Practices by
Steve Payne and Alan Williams.
Super, okay.
And eventually it's leading to, obviously that's like a calendar reference, so like every day.
So you have a little bit of thought. Oh, great. Yeah. So you make it kind of just part of your morning routine, and then
you should be looking at your value set really every day, like what values have I met today? Because when you feel a bit scratchy, or you feel a bit fed up, or you feel a bit, I've had enough, what's been depleted? So if I've had a very serious day, one of my values is humor as well, so if I had a very serious day and it's all been a bit heavy, God, for me it's a nightmare, and I need to have some lightness, I need to laugh, I need to find joy in something. So I'll know, because that will start to make me feel a bit flattened. So I can easily check that one and think, right, I need to watch something light-hearted, or I need to have a laugh with my daughter, or call a friend, or just be silly, whatever it takes to fill up that value of humor for me when things have got a bit too serious, a bit too heavy. So they're amazing, really, tools. They're tools, really, but they are you. They're the core of you, and we need to know who we are.
Absolutely. And I mean, once you know that, how do you then align that with your business goals or your personal goals?
Well, of course, that's quite a big question, but really you would then look at your business and you just apply it to everything. So, it's depending what they are, if based on mine, is my business growing? Yes or no? Where is it growing most? Here or there? What do I need to do to help it to grow? What's making me happy when I see the growth? Connection. Do I have enough connection? Is the connection good with my clients in my business? Am I connecting with the right people? Another one of mine is like trust. So am I building the right levels of trust with my audience, with my clients? Do they trust me? Do I trust them? Who am I working with? If I ever get any nudges or feelings about people or anything like that, I always sit and listen to it and think, what is it that's you're not quite landing? Okay, because I'm all about service and serving, so I like being served as well. So of course, I love being sold to, and I love to be taken through that process, and I kind of judge it and measure it of how other people do it, and I think, sell to me, and so I'm really happy to buy when that goes through. So it's very important that your values are aligned in your marketing, so you can attract similar people with similar values, and you start to build a real culture in your business, not just mishmash what you think you should be doing or what other people think you should be doing.
Absolutely. Oh, amazing.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's a
big subject.
It is a big subject, but I just wanted to sort of touch on that, because I know people know, how does this all kind of come together? Because it sounds like, I'm going to sit down and figure this out, but it's like it's
when you need a coach, right?
Well, that's right. On a practical level, how do I sort of make this work? And then from a branding point of view, it's the same process, isn't it? Really, I mean, as a business owner, it's thinking about what you want to come across, how you want to come across, and what you're wanting to put out there in the world, isn't it?
Certainly, your business needs a set of core values as well, and they may not be quite the same in priority as your personal ones, but they won't be far off. But I've just done my 6-week program where I help people to set their values at the beginning, and their core business values, their brand values, personal values. So when you look at your business, what you're doing. So again, it's another steer. So if you think about getting involved with somebody else in business, is this right for my business? Is this a good investment? Who am I going to work with? Do they share the same value set? It doesn't mean you only ever have to build it on that, but quite often, if you come across somebody who doesn't have the same value set as you, it's going to be a difficult partnership.
Yeah,
It's
it's not going to work, is it?
It's going to be a difficult relationship, and that goes with clients as well. So, you know, when you're assessing what clients you want to attract and who you want to work with, and people go, oh, that was a nightmare client, or that didn't work out, or it's all, I think there's a lot of incongruence there, and I've unpacked a lot of stuff like that with my clients when they end up working with people or companies and they're just hating it, and I'm like, what's going on? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So they often just don't know how to put that into their branding so it attracts the right people. And it's the same whether it's your personal business branding or you know, anything really. People have got to understand what you stand for. And in order for that to happen, you've got to know what you stand for first.
As well, yeah.
Before that, else people just get confused and then they say no, or they can't be bothered to find out anymore.
Absolutely.
So building a personal brand is very much based on those values. And again, anyone that knew me would say, oh yeah, well, Teresa's always going on about professional coaching and training, and you know, it's important to her to be professional. And hopefully they would recognize other things in me as well. You know, I like I do have a high level of integrity. I'm quite honest, I'm quite open, quite direct. So people would know really before they got to me what
you're all about
to a level.
Absolutely.
And of course we're always building on that, you know, like I say, I'm building a business like everybody else. So my particular coaching business is only 2 years in, so I'm still always, and even when people have been 15 years in business, they're still building it. So I always like to look at everyone on an equal playing field, and we're all on a journey, and we're just at different stages.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely. Oh, Teresa, this has been absolutely brilliant. I really, really appreciate your time today. And
it's been amazing. I'm sorry if it's a bit long.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I think there was a lot to cover. There was a lot to unpack.
You got to the end of this. Well done.
I was going to say, I hope our listeners have gained great value. I'm just trying to sort of,
I should give them a freebie.
I'm having to confess, I'm having a bit of fun with the technology in terms of seeing comments and that, because Facebook is kind of lagging. So, but I'm seeing likes and things like that. So yeah, that's all great.
Well, I'll share it as well. And you know, if there are comments on there or anyone wants to talk about, you know, value, sales, business, then here I am.
Yes,
so
and I was going to say, and just to kind of pull this together then, so if Teresa, people want to find out more about you and Coach Magazine and the podcast, where's the best place to go?
Just stick it into Facebook and I'll pop up. It's really easy. So Facebook, Teresa Brooks, or Teresa Brooks Coaching, and also Coach Magazine. I have a coach community. So if anyone is a coach, consultant, mentor, or therapist and would like to join the coach community that you're in as well, then that's great. You can just look for that. It won't be difficult to find me. Hopefully I've done enough work online that I'll be easily findable.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Oh, well, listen, Teresa, thank you so very much today. And I hope all of you have enjoyed this, and I'll see you soon on Making Work Work.
Oh, thank you, Chris, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.